everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Paris and I'm the author of the Magi trilogy. Book 1 is out now and available to order as an ebook or paperback on Amazon, and merchandise will be coming very soon. In today's video, I want to talk about the importance of word of mouth marketing and advertising, because the reality is, if I didn't talk about the Magi, if I didn't start my Instagram page for it, if I didn't mention it to my friends, my family, my coworkers, I would not have sold a single copy. So marketing is one of the most, if not the most important part of publishing. In today's video, I want to talk specifically about the word of mouth aspect of it. Word of mouth advertising can be very nerve-wracking because in some ways it makes you feel, I don't know if exposed is the right word, but it can make you feel very nervous because you're revealing a part of yourself and you're showing people something that you've worked tirelessly on. You work endlessly on it. Publishing a book takes a lot of work. It's not something that happens in a day. It's something that happens in literal years. So it takes a long time, and when you're talking about it, you might feel flustered and embarrassed. What if you get shut down? What if people aren't interested? What if they don't care? There's a lot of what ifs with it, but I have found that word of mouth advertising is actually a very, very good thing. Now, the question is, how do you bring up your book in the topic of conversation? Do you just say, hi, my name is Paris, I'm a published author, you should buy my book, pull it out of your bag, I have a signed copy available right here, right now? No, sometimes, you could totally give that a try. Not gonna lie, I do think that would get you some sales. But I think oftentimes you can find ways to ease into the conversation. I know recently a coworker, she asked me if I had plans for the night, and I took there was a second of hesitation. My plans for the night were to sign my signed copies of my book, and I had this moment of, should I? And I made a sale, guys. I was like, oh, I actually published a book recently, and I'm planning on signing my copies tonight. And she kind of stopped, and she was like, you published a book? She asked me what it was about. She bought a copy right off of me the following day. So, guys, word of mouth advertising works. And yes, it is nerve-wracking. Yes, it's awkward. You're gonna have that moment of hesitation. It gets easier and it gets you sales. So talk about your book. I cannot stress this enough. Talk about your book. Now, there are moments and times where you could talk about it too much. If all you talk about is your book and your publishing, so on and so forth, chances are you might end up accidentally pushing people away. But if you bring it up in a casual topic of conversation, people are going to ask you questions about it. This is how you get the segue into advertising more so. People are going to ask you, what's your book about? Or they might ask you how many copies you've sold, where they can personally buy it, etc. You want people asking these questions because questions gauge interest. I've been talking about word of mouth advertising, and there's actually another part of word of mouth advertising that I have yet to mention. And it's the word of mouth part of it. Word of mouth advertising doesn't just mean that you talk about it, which obviously that is the beginning of it. You have to start that verbal conversation. But over time, news is going to spread through other people. If you tell one person about your book, then chances are they're going to be like, oh my gosh, did you know that Paris has a book published? This has happened to me. This actually happens to me fairly frequently at work. The other day I had a coworker who I've only worked with a couple times, so I've never talked to her about my book. She stopped me and she was like, Paris, I heard you have a book published. Turns out my manager actually was talking about my book to several of my other coworkers, and it got me 3 more sales. So word of mouth advertising is very, very important because you start that push and it's like a domino effect. When you tell somebody that you have something as exciting as a book published or a book that's going to be published, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I got to tell other people about this, or I want to talk about this, or does so-and-so know about it already? Or I heard they have a copy of the book. I think I want to buy one too. Word of mouth advertising is the best way to advertise because it effectively gets the marketing off of you and onto other people. People will market for you. They might not realize that they're doing it. They might not realize that by asking somebody else if they already know that you're published or not is actually advertising for you. They might not realize that when they mention that to somebody else, to a friend, to a family member, that they know somebody with a published book, and then their family member or friend buys a copy, how much that actually supports you. Word of mouth advertising will get you sales, and it will get you a lot of them. Talking about your book actually does get a lot easier over time, and I mean, in some ways you would expect that as you learn to talk about it more, as you kind of realize what interests people and what doesn't interest people as much, what is a good sales pitch, what isn't. You just learn as you go, and over time it really does get easier. I don't feel as nervous talking about it anymore because I know how to do it. But going off of that, I know for me, a big kind of shift when I talk about advertising is when I went from saying I'm going to be publishing a book to I have published a book. For me personally, being able to have like this hard copy that I'm like, yep, I published this is finished, that helped me personally. And that is where I've gotten most of my sales from, because people kind of knew of it, but after I got publishing, that's when I started talking about it more. So in some ways, I wish I had talked about it a little more before I had published, because that would have gotten more interest from the very beginning. But I mean, better late than never. I'm getting sales from my coworkers now, you know? It's something that you learn as you go. And again, it's a big shift when you're talking like, oh, I'm going to, there is some what if in it. What if it doesn't work out? What if it's later than you expect? You know, so on and so forth. What if it doesn't work at all? Period. So there's that moment of almost hesitation, but when you have the book actually out, it's going to be easier to advertise it because you have a literal book. You can straight up pick up a copy and be like, yep, this is my book. I published it all by myself. So it gets easier with time, and sometimes having that tangible copy of the book helps, but let yourself get comfortable with it before you publish, because that will help you get sales immediately day of. Now, I keep mentioning advertising to friends, coworkers, family, so on and so forth. What about advertising to new acquaintances? What about advertising to people that you might not see again? Now, that is even more nerve-wracking, and it's something that I'm personally trying to get better at. And I found like you can't really push your book into people's face. You shouldn't stop people on the street and just start advertising your book. That's not going to get you sales. But take advantage of segues into the conversation. I have a ring I wear all the time. I actually don't have it on my hand right now, but it has a purple and green gem on it. And I've had customers at work ask me what the ring is for. They've asked me if it was my birthstone, which actually, fun fact, Peridot is my birthstone. It does have a connection to Rose's eyes. I don't talk about that often, but Rose's eye color, it's partially because I associate green with healing, but it's also partially that specific shade is because it's my birthstone. So there is that secret meaning there. So I could tell people, yeah, it's my birthstone, but what I have told people is, oh, I actually published a book and these green and purple are symbols in the book. Now that, man, there's a little bit of awkwardness with that, because they kind of look at you and they're like, wait, wait. But sometimes they might be interested in it. I had one person ask me about the genre of the book, and then she was like, oh, I like supporting local authors. I bought in a few self-published books before, but I'm more a mystery person, so I don't know if I'll buy your book. So that was a little bit awkward, but hey, I almost kind of got a sale from her. And there was one other person who asked me about it, and her father had actually self-published a book as well. So she was like, oh, where did you publish from? So I had to talk to her a little bit about KDP. So conversations like that, they actually do happen. Again, it's nerve-wracking and it's awkward, and sometimes you're gonna have that moment of doubt. Every single time I always have this moment of, should I do it? And I'm genuinely working and putting that effort forward to not being as nervous about talking about my book, because I want my book to do well. I want to be successful as an author and as a writer, and I want to publish more books in the future. So how am I going to make that happen if I don't talk about it? How am I going to make it happen when I don't use word of mouth? Because chances are, I mentioned to that girl that I've published a book and her father's published a book. Chances are she went home and was like, oh, hey, Dad, I met somebody else who published a book. Doesn't necessarily mean that they bought a copy. I don't think they did. I don't really have a way to tell. But they could have talked about it. There could be talk about my book out there. People know of it, and that is how it starts. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped encourage you and helped kind of reiterate in your mind how important word of mouth advertising is, because marketing and advertising is incredibly nerve-wracking. I've mentioned that several times throughout this video. It really is nerve-wracking, but it gets better and it gets easier as you learn how to do it, as you become more confident in yourself. Because it comes down to this: be confident in yourself. You have published, or you are going to publish a book. You're going to publish a novel. And part of publishing means that you want people to read your book. Now, some writers might choose that they don't want people reading their book. They might write a novel and choose not to publish it. That's one thing, and that's perfectly okay. I personally have some projects that are full-length novels that I don't know if I'll ever publish. But the ones that I am going to publish and the ones that I want to publish them for a reason. I want people to be able to read my writing. And if I want to achieve that goal of having people read my writing, I need to conquer my fear of starting that kind of awkward feeling conversation and actually start the advertising, start the word of mouth chain. So guys, I know it's nerve-wracking, but you can do it. It will get easier and it will get you sales, so it's worth it. Thank you again for watching this video. If you have any questions about kind of, topic starters, how to start an actual conversation, feel free to let me know down below. If you would like another video with more in-depth tips on how to actually really get the conversation going, how to pitch your book, so on and so forth, again, let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to make that. But for now, have a great rest of your morning, evening, night, whatever time it is. Have a great day.